Hello, and thank you for watching the documented process of how I made an iron for my mother. I started off by sculpting initial prototype using chavant industrial clay. It was made out of 2 interlocking pieces and internal volume was over 3 liters. I chose round shape as it felt natural to hug and overall harmony and symbolism that shape brings. To refine shape further, I have remodeled it in 3D modeling software. I've added the side groove for better grip and more elegant appearance, and have sliced half of the model into 7 pieces. Since I do not own 3D printer, I ordered parts online from Hub's website. It's really easy, just drag and drop files, confirm I'm not printing anything dodgy, then find cheapest option they have, which is FDM, and wait for the printed parts to arrive. Once printed parts arrived, I have immediately noticed that some parts were printed in horizontal direction, whilst others in vertical. At the time of order, I have paid £166, and to be honest, I was a bit disappointed by the quality. I thought I can still work with those parts though, until I have noticed that when all 7 pieces are stacked together, they do not align. But again, it's probably because of the print direction. Customer support was really good, very helpful. They asked for photos to prove my point, and they just reprinted the whole thing, and I got to keep the old parts. So actually I can use them later for reference. It was then time to get the hands dirty. In this phase, the plan was to fix imperfections of 3D printed parts. I first sanded down filament bulges, then used filler to fill spaces between filament layers, and then sanded everything down again. Here I was using an industrial filler Bondo glazing and spot putty. It sets fast, sands easy, and is waterproof after drying. It is good, but its vapors are very toxic. But, I was saved because, lucky for me, same manufacturer made the respirator that I used. But the reality is, this is what I should have used, because this is proper industrial respirator with eye coverage from vapors. For lighter jobs, you can change filters, so I should have gotten this one. After initial pass of filling and sanding, 3D printed parts have become much smoother, and this is exactly what I was going for. Once all parts have been processed with paste, it was time to use primer filler. I used a makeshift spraying station which I placed on an IKEA stepladder. It's not ideal, but it works if using short bursts of primer. I used cardboard base under each part and rotated it between coating sprays. Once dry, I flipped them over and sprayed once again. After all parts were coated with primer filler, it started to look promising, but I decided to give it another pass with a filler paste. This time I used Liquitex. It's a water-based acrylic modeling paste, which at home setting is a much safer option. It is worth mentioning that if water is reapplied after drying, it will become paste again, which in this case I found helpful, as it can be smoothed out with wet fingers, reducing the amount of sanding afterwards. I then lightly sanded it and coated it with primer filler again. After 2 passes of filling, sanding and spraying with primer filler, I was happy with the quality of parts. It still had minor visible imperfections, but for what I was going for, this level of imperfections won't matter. In my opinion, the beauty of something handmade is that every stage of the process leaves a mark, and in the end those imperfections only add to the character of the final product. Next stage was to prepare boxes for mold making. I used 6mm thick plywood. I've also engraved the ruler. Internal box surface was sanded and coated with the release agent before assembly. Then I just used regular tape to bind boxes in place. So I'm using plywood, but it obviously doesn't need to be plywood. In fact, if it was smoother material, it would probably be better, but I think this is the best material you can use with laser cutter. And as a last step, I sealed boxes from inside. 4 cute little boxes ready to serve. These are the products that I used. Anything that can go wrong during pouring process will go wrong. That's why I have prepared all the required equipment at an arm's reach, did all the volumes calculation and double checked everything. To work out volumes of silicon and resin, I used computer modeling software, and I was good to go. I tried this BBDino silicon, never used it before. Put the bucket on the scale, then just pour parts A and B. Mix well. And happy times, pouring begins. You kinda don't want to go too fast or too slow. But as long as parts didn't float up and you didn't make a mess with silicone, I consider it a success already. This is the moment when you don't really know what to expect. So let's see. I first scraped off the edges of the silicone with the palette knife. It's a tool used in painting. And then it's literally just brute force and a bit of patience, a bit of care. You don't want to break the box because you will need to reuse it again later. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy watching. So initially, when I was casting the first box, I didn't stick my 3D printed parts to the base of the box, and I started pouring silicone. And because now I know that obviously plastic is lighter than silicone, it raised, and there wasn't much that I could do except wait for the next day and, destroy the box, take it all apart. Then I had to sand the box again, coat it with sealant agent and all that stuff again, cover with tape and just to try it again. So working with silicone is stressful, but in times like this, when you're just finally taking it out of the box, when it's in solid state, it's really rewarding, I have to say, because then you feel that you already accomplished something. So here I'm just cleaning a bit of excess silicone, which was a buildup of that silicone sealant that I used to stick 3D printed parts to the base. And before anything, it needs to be removed. I would say this is also quite rewarding part. It's not very stressful because at this point, the next stage is to take the part out of the silicone and see how it all worked out or not. But I would suspect that the silicone is decent, I would have to say. Although for some reason, it's full of bubbles. Full of very little tiny little bubbles. And I think maybe it's because of my box was made out of plywood and silicone reacted to it. So maybe if I used, say, more of a MDF board that's painted for my boxes, maybe that would have been better in terms of silicone. But anyways, it worked out well, and now you can see all them stacked together. Before we're gonna start pouring resin, we just put them back in the boxes where they belong. This is like a space shot. And then we just start mixing our resin. Its principle is the same as silicone, except that silicone you can do by weight, and for some reason this resin I couldn't do that. And I had to go by volume. So I'm just heating up those parts to eliminate the bubbles out of them as much as possible. And then I'm just pouring it. So at this point, I've also haven't tried this resin. I don't know how it's going to work, but let's see. I bought a blowtorch because even after heating silicone molds and resin, I still get bubbles on top. And with the toothpick, as you can see, I'm trying to eliminate some bubbles that are unfortunately trapped in the base of the mold. So upon drying, resin has this little concave the next day. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to infill it with a fresh layer of resin. But obviously it's very hard to do in a clean way. And I'm taking these parts out now of the mold to have a closer look at them. And actually they casted out quite well, I have to say. I like it that it's not yellowing, at least at this moment. Resin seemed to cure pretty well. It's quite tough. There are bubbles, but I kind of like the actual texture of those bubbles in the resin that are trapped. As I mentioned before, every stage has its own imprints, which kind of keep building with the further you progress in the project. And bubbles are, I guess, part of the story too. Then I just stacked them up as a kind of trial run. I just used rubber bands to secure them in place. Yeah, the big picture is there, I think, but there's a lot of job to be done. So back to school because last time I used Fretsaw was exactly then. So I ordered one on Amazon, and I kind of made a makeshift cutting station at my desk. And yeah, it was fun day of sawing resin. It's not that easy. And then from then on, it's sanding, and another sanding. Like my weekend was like, if my colleagues ask, "Hey, what's your plans for weekend?" I'd be like, "I'm gonna be making an urn," and I've been telling them I'm making that urn for ages. All of my friends are like, "How is your urn going?" I'm like, "I'm still working on it." It's like, "So how long have you been working on it?" I'm like, "Yeah, kind of almost 2 years now." It's actually time flies, and I just want to get this project done, and I kept procrastinating it because I had other projects going on. But anyways, it turns out pretty well so far. So sanding went well, and I'm now just starting to join those parts together by using only the same resin that I used for everything else until this point. The top parts of this model will be binded together. So that's what I'm doing at this moment. I'm just gonna form a uniform piece out of these two pieces, and that is going to be the lid of the ceremony urn. But at this stage, it's just a kind of fabrication of it. And yeah, resin is a good binder for resin, I have to say. It's I really like how these runoffs look like on this otherwise matte-shaped resin. It's I really like the feel of it. It's like a glass. I know it's plastic. It's mentally it is something about it that it looks like glass, but it's not. It's plastic. But you know what's cool? Because once you have this thing in your hand, it's quite heavy. So that heaviness of that plastic, you kind of start thinking of what resin actually is, and it's a product of processed oil. It is not sustainable, but on the other hand, it's oil, right? We have oil on Earth, and I think as long as that oil has been converted into another state of it, and now suitable for people to start creating something out of it that will last long, I think it makes sense, because looking from material perspective, this urn is going to last a lifelong. Like, it's gonna outlive me, my mom, and everybody in my family. It's gonna stay in the family. That's why I think I can justify using so much resin on it. Otherwise, all these crappy projects from resin, like phone cases, I disapprove strongly. But as a material, resin can be actually quite cool. You can make interesting stuff with it. And in this case, that's what I decided to use. Obviously, this is the first go at using the silicone molds, because from now on I can use any material I want to make other urns or another vases, because this is a multifunctional object. It is not meant to be used once and then just get rid of, or it's not going to be put in the grave, because in some cultures they put urns in the grave, and it's fine. But this is not the type of urn that's going to get dissolved. This is the type of urn that is going to be ceremony urn, that when you die, I'll put basically a paper infill in it, so that the ashes of my mom will not be actually touching the urn from inside. So there will be paper insert when the time comes. And then this outer shell is representing my mother. So she wanted it to be made out of what I'm going to make it later. I don't want to spoil it just yet. But basically the material for finding the character of this urn is provided by my mom. She kind of said that, this is something that if you can incorporate, that would be cool. So why not? Like, if you make something that is going to last a long time and a person's going to be able to use it before they go, I think, like, how cooler what is cooler than that, in my opinion? Like, I know some people say, wow, it's creepy, urn is like for dead people. Nobody likes to talk about death. And, we're all gonna, die. But once again, you might choose how you want to go. You want to go in style or not. So basically, the shape of this urn is gonna allow everybody who come to your kind of goodbye ceremony give you a last hug. I know it's symbolic. You're not gonna feel it because you're gonna be ashes, but whatever. So people gonna know that you kind of partially was influencing this design, like, cause she's my client at this stage. And this thing gonna have a story. Then basically everybody gives her a hug, and kind of that's say goodbye to my mom. And after that, I'm gonna keep that urn because nothing's wrong with it. Paper is like, it's hygienic. Yeah, I know my mom would love it, and I know my mom has been in there. I mean, it sounds a bit ridiculous, I know, but look, what I'm going to use it for is to kind of store photos of her in there, or family photos. It's just nice, like a vase, like an object to have on your shelf with the history. And here I'm just making a kind of lid, some sort of lid joint that I'm trying to come up with. So I got these pins. It's kind of pins to hang shelves. So I just drilled through a bottom portion of where the lid covering is going to be, and I'm just and then I put that other one, and then I drill through both of them so that I know where the top one is gonna have the kind of negative. And then they kind of start working, and then I just infilled a few of these pieces of corners where I had bubbles initially when I was making this shape. And it's almost time to kind of finish it off. So just final sanding. It's been a lot of sanding. I actually discovered that you can use your bathroom for sanding. I know it's kind of funny, but when the summer ended, I couldn't anymore sand outdoors. So I had to figure out a way of doing it indoors. So obviously I don't have a workshop. So bathroom was a place where it all happened. But yeah, you just wash it away. It's not even like that bad, I think. And joint starts to work quite nice. It's time for it to be added to the big mama. Let's do it. With every piece that you add to it, like the longer you work on this project, the closer to the end you get, the moment you start understanding that it actually, the geometry finally starts working. And believe it or not, but it's all zoom ins in this video. In reality, it's not more than 1 millimeter off of the original design in like a CAD. But on top of that, it has all these imperfections now. It has the joints that are kind of not perfectly sanded. This is exactly what I like. This is like a raw thing. Flowers, flowers, flowers. My mom loves them. Which woman doesn't, right? But kind of she grows a lot of them. So I said, Mom, give me some flowers. So she gave me a lot of flowers. And I'll incorporate that in the urn. I made a sketch. 2 sides left is spring. So I'll use kind of fresh type of feel. And the right side is like a fall, and it's kind of more reddish. So it's kind of also very symbolic. And also, I think it's a little bit of inspired by, Impressionists and like Monet and Van Gogh, who were just trying to capture the moment. So I guess I'm, in a sense, trying to just be a mere assistant to those guys, and like little charlatan here trying to use a term of impressionism in something that I'm doing with resin. Those guys would probably laugh at me, but whatever. I think it makes sense because, spring is... my mom actually lives in a place where she has that field of a lot of dandelions in spring. So it's like green all the spring, and then dandelions start blossoming. And then it's all like immediately yellow field. So that's like a spring. And there's also, because there's a lake in front of that field, so she likes to see how the sun goes down in the evenings, especially in the autumn, because the sky color is beautiful. And in winter, the lake freezes, turns to ice, and it's different type of beautiful. So obviously, this is a very simplified version of everything that I just mentioned, but I hope she can appreciate. I mean, like, the truth is, I'm sure she's gonna start crying when she sees what I did to her. Oh man, 100%, man. She's like, come on, make me an urn. The sooner the better, man. I'm like, Mom, come on, you can't die until I finish the urn, alright? Calm down, man. It's gonna be alright. It took a long time to cut those flowers, I'll tell you that. But okay, so then we just basically, I'm trying to get the two pieces together in a way that, because now I'm going to start filling resin on it and, using those flowers that I just cut. So it kind of needs to be secured in a way that I can open it later so that they don't glue together. And I decided that tape will do the job. So that's why I covered it in tape earlier and, secured with a rope. And now I covered resin, and now I'm starting to, I have, you're not going to see here in this shot, but I have iPad on my right side with that sketch that I showed you earlier. So what am I doing here is I'm basically trying to use those flowers that I just cut, and I'm just, kind of breadcrumbing them on the resin, pretty much, yeah. And, let's see how that turns out, because I've never done that before. I mean, theoretically, like, why would it not work? It's just, how detailed, like, can you actually be? And I'm gonna be coating it in a couple of layers. So I'm just more or less trying to, in the first pass, I'm trying to create some sort of base that is gonna be the foundation for this kind of, the sketch that I made earlier. And after that, so it dried out, the next day I come back and I'm like, okay, let's mix some resin again and hope that I can, kind of coat it without ripping off the first layer. But surprisingly, the first layer is like solid, man. It's really solid. I'm proud of my toothpick skills, I guess, because that's the tool number one for this task. And of course, fingers. So yeah, you gotta have some, I guess, practice in the kitchen is the reason why I'm quite decent at this, because, I spend time in the kitchen, using spices and salt. So maybe that's the reason. Sorry for my bad joke, but anyways. So now I'm coating it with a second layer after the resin has been coated. So that should kind of start, the picture should start coming together a little bit better. Because, the darker color in the foreground, a bit brighter in the background, hopefully will help this kind of sketch come into life a little bit better. Because at the moment, it kind of looks a little bit flat. But that's the good thing about resin, that, there's always a, first layer, there's nothing. Second layer, maybe something. Okay, let's see where a third layer brings us. And, once you coat it with resin, again, it kind of brings it back to life, because then it's like priming, right? That's why they finish paintings with the primer. You cover it with a layer of like reflective material, let's say, and it kind of makes everything uniform and look good. Then, yeah, let's see how it turned out. And cut the rope off. Start to peel off that tape. Wasn't that easy. It looks very easy in the video, but it took a good while. and I didn't even take videos of how I was opening this joint, but in the end of the day, it was quite okay, like it worked. It could be better, but it worked. So obviously now I just need to file away the impurities of this first layer, and second time I was smarter. I used cling film, and I just said I don't want to have any runoff this time, because why would I want to clean it later so badly? And I can't, because I can't lose the first side that I have already spent so long kind of crumbling. So let's see how this goes. And I kind of just covered everything in resin for this one, because I'm like, I don't want to limit myself with where I can put those crumbs on and where I can't. So I'm going a little bit more generous here with resin. I feel at this moment that I'm like, yeah, I'm more confident, I've done one already, so this is my second one. And, I'm having a momentum here, so like, okay, but kind of generous. This looks a bit like cheese now at this moment. It looks like I'm adding a lot of Parmesan cheese on pizza and adding this resin again. Let's see where that goes. You see, the thing is that for the sky, for example, I would have wanted to have a little bit more shades of blue, but I didn't want to buy extra flowers. I only wanted to use the flowers that my mom gave me. So, I had to play this game with the tools that I had with the card. I had to play this hand of poker with the cards that I had been dealt, and expect that, on the flop, I'm gonna get something decent. Anyways, so I think it's kind of trying to come out quite well. Few of these green layers of green, I think, added to that richness, and so far so good. I like it. I added a little bit of kind of yellow flower crumbles to the base now to mimic those dandelions that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, this is pretty much, looks a bit like, also like in the cooking, sometimes you add a lot of those spices, those green spices. I don't remember the name of that piece of lamb that you can make, but you add a lot of those green stuff, and that kind of also reminded me a little bit like that. But anyways, yeah, after coding, I think I was pretty happy with this one. I was just gonna start thinking like, how am I going to open this thing now with such a thick layer in front of it? But let's just hope that the strategy of opening is going to work out better than the previous one. But again, as you see, it's much thicker layer than the initial one. So, but overall, I think it's kind of worked out, this kind of tape strategy. And it's, I'm starting to feel that it's kind of, very close to end now. After almost 2 years. Kind of having this constantly in your mind, because if you have a project on your mind, and once it started, you will never kind of, even if you're not working on it, you still think about it, and it's something like you feel guilty that you're not working on it. So I'm very happy that this one is going to be, I'm going to unload it off my chest. What I'm doing here is I'm just kind of sanding the rough edges of like all those flowers, because once you hug it, you don't want to ruin your sweater, basically. So you have to prepare it so that it's kind of going to be usable for a long time, because otherwise those things, they're going to be constantly rubbing things that I shouldn't. So maybe it is a time to have a look how it turned out. And this is a side-by-side kind of comparison of those initial sketches that I drew. I think I'd appreciate if you guys also in the comments, leave your opinion of what you think, and Do you like it? You don't like it? It's crap or what? But I think it's kind of cool, this concept of like, flower colors related with the seasons of the year. This resin is like ice and water. It's kind of shiny and it's matte, and those bubbles that are there by accident, but during the sanding process, they kind of turned white. So a little bit like snow. Of course, it was a byproduct, but it kind of worked out into my advantage. So, I think it's much better than the sketch in my personal opinion. It just looks so much more vivid from the close-up. Like, the amount of detail that you get is crazy. Like, I could never get that with paint. And this is not even paint. This is like a natural, like nature's created pigment. And it's just interesting for me, like, how long is this going to be preserved? I think the color shouldn't fade. Obviously, I'm not going to keep it in like bright light, but it worked. And all that is nothing if it's not functional, which it is. And before anything else, it's a vase. For different sides, you can have different type of flower arrangements. And it kind of really looks good in any interior. I think also, if not flowers, then it can be used to store anything really, from cards to cookies to nuts, seeds, I don't know, whatever, you name it. And when the time comes, just put the paper insert in there and put the ashes of a person, and everybody who come to say goodbye can give you their last hug and hold you for a while. Because in the end of the day, we're all just space dust and die in style. I hope you enjoyed this video and watched it all the way till the end. But, I don't even know if it's possible. So, thanks again. And if you liked it, please subscribe. So this is a story of learning. So this is just to illustrate that not always everything goes smooth, and I consider myself quite knowledgeable, but so I used to cast silicon using industrial clay directly earlier, and this was the first time me trying to cast something with 3D printed parts, and I didn't realize that obviously it's gonna float, and it did. And look at this, how that's the type of issues with silicon I mentioned before, that it's pleasure to work with it in its solid state, but man, look, I was caught by surprise. What happened? Then I ran downstairs and I was like, okay, how can I try to at least salvage this? So I just found these 2 empty bottles and I quickly filled them with water. Then I came back, look, dipping my fingers in that silicon, wiping, man. You cannot even wipe silicon off properly because it's still sticky no matter what you do, even you wipe it off. So, this is my evening ruined right there. Money like 50 quid, maybe 60 quid, like loss of silicon, and obviously I am gonna have to next day or whenever I have another chance to work on it, come back and destroy the box just to build it again and start again. And next time you're gonna be more stressful because you're like, is it gonna work this time or what? There's different type of issues happen, in different type of stages of this project. It's a small scale project, but still, it takes time to do things properly. So what you see on video is not always what happens behind the scenes. So learn it from my mistakes. And if that boring story just wasn't enough, then the next one is definitely for you. To briefly explain the idea, I've broken it down into criteria. It had to be a multifunctional and sculptural design object that I would be able to hug. It would be of a personalized minimalistic design and have internal volume of 3 liters. It could serve as a flower vase, object holding vessel, or could also serve as a ceremony urn, and for that reason, it would have to be resealable.